The afternoon sunlight that day was dazzling white, like scattered shards of silver. I pushed open the glass door of the milk tea shop. There was a jingling sound. The girl behind the counter looked up and smiled at me. Her name was Shanayan, the kind of girl my friend said was not easy to pursue, clean, quiet, with eyes that curved into crescent moons when she smiled. I ordered a lemon tea. When she handed it to me, her fingertips slightly brushed the back of my hand. That moment was so brief it felt like an illusion. But her fingers didn't pull back immediately. They lingered there as if waiting for something. My heart suddenly beat a half beat faster. I looked up at her, but she was already fiddling with the straw, the tips of her ears quietly turning red. In that moment, I suddenly understood some ambiguous beginnings start with a single accidental touch. After that day, I began to notice every little thing Shanayan did. It was strange before. I thought she was just an ordinary girl, pretty in a clean way, gentle in temperament, nothing particularly special. But ever since her fingers touched mine, she seemed like a completely different person in my eyes. I'd unconsciously look for her figure in a crowd, remembered exactly what flavor of milk tea she liked, and coincidentally walked past her desk when she was working late. My friend said I was crazy. I told him he didn't understand. It wasn't madness, it was my body reacting before my brain. Shanayan wasn't much of a talker, but her hands were very talkative. Once, when a few of us were eating together, I sat next to her. When the conversation got interesting, she laughed and patted my arm. The pat wasn't hard, her palm was warm, and through my thin shirt, I could feel the outline of her fingers. After patting me, she didn't pull her hand back right away. Instead, she left it resting on my forearm, as if checking whether I'd flinch away. I didn't flinch. In fact, I turned slightly closer to her. She lowered her head to take a sip of her drink, the corners of her mouth curving upward. I thought to myself right then, this girl isn't joking around. She's testing me, testing whether I'm the one who can make her let down her guard. Later, we went out alone once, on a weekend afternoon. She said she wanted to go to a bookstore. I accompanied her for 2 hours. I stood behind her and smelled the faint scent of gardenia in her hair. Suddenly she turned around, nearly bumping into my chest. We were so close I could see the curve of her eyelashes. She didn't step back, and neither did I. We just froze for 2 or 3 seconds before she gently pushed me and said with a smile, "We're too close." But there was no reproach in that smile, just a hint of embarrassed delight. Me meow, meow 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 me me, how meow meow meow. Afraid of walking alone at night. As she spoke, her eyes sparkled, as if she were sharing a secret only I knew. I reached over, pushed her coffee cup slightly closer to her, and my fingertips accidentally brushed the back of her hand. This time she didn't pull away. Instead, she spread her fingers slightly, as if waiting for me to place my hand in hers. I didn't dare. Not because I didn't want to, but because I was afraid of rushing things and scaring her away. But Shanayan was braver than I expected. Once, when we were watching a movie together, she sat to my right. At a tense moment in the film, her hand suddenly grabbed my arm, her fingernails lightly pressing into my skin. I turned to look at her, but she kept her eyes on the screen, pretending nothing had happened. But her hand didn't let go. Slowly it slid from my arm to the back of my hand, and her fingers intertwined with mine. In that moment, I forgot everything about the movie. All I remembered was how soft her hand was, how her palm was slightly damp with nervous sweat. I gently squeezed her hand. She squeezed back, not hard, but it seemed to say, "I'm here. I chose you." After that, our relationship was like water coming to a boil, bubbling and steaming. She'd bring me late night snacks when I worked overtime, happened to walk me home on rainy days, and send me ambiguous WeChat messages like "I kind of missed you today," only to quickly delete them and say, I knew she hadn't sent them by mistake. She was just too shy to speak to directly. The real turning point came on a rainy night. I'd walked her home, and when we reached her building, the rain started falling harder. Neither of us had an umbrella. We stood under the small awning at the entrance. The rain was so loud we had to lean in close to hear each other. Suddenly, she reached up and straightened my collar, which the wind had messed up. Her fingers brushed from my collar to the back of my neck, lightly hooking the edge of my shirt. That motion was so light, like a feather drifting past, but my back instantly tensed. Her fingers stopped at the back of my neck and didn't leave. I looked into her eyes. She didn't look away, didn't speak, just looked at me with an expression that held anticipation, nervousness, and a little encouragement. I took a deep breath, lowered my head slightly, and whispered near her ear, "Your hands are cold." She smiled, a very soft smile like raindrops on glass. "Then warm them for me." I took her hand and pulled her into my arms. Her body stiffened for a moment, then slowly relaxed as she leaned her whole weight against my chest. I could feel her heart beat fast, mingling with mine so I couldn't tell whose was more urgent. She looked up, her nose brushing against my chin, her lips so close I could feel her breath. Shania, I said her name. Her voice was soft, as if afraid of disturbing something. I want to kiss you. She didn't say anything. She just closed her eyes. My kiss was very light, very slow, as if tasting something precious. Her lips were soft, with a hint of lemon tea sweetness. My hand rested on her waist. She didn't push me away. She placed her hand on my shoulder, her fingers gently squeezing. The rain kept falling, humming louder on the awning above us, but neither of us moved. After that day, Shania became my girlfriend. My friends all said I was lucky to have pursued one, the girl everyone thought was hard to get. But I knew the truth, I hadn't pursued her. She had been giving me chances from the very beginning. Those touches, those glances, those seemingly casual approaches, they were all her way of saying I like you. Do you want to come closer? But so many men can treat those signals. I have a buddy named Xiaolei. He's good looking, well off, but incredibly dense when it comes to romance, and once he went out to dinner with a mutual friend, Lin Wei. She patted his arm several times, straightened his collar, and even placed her hand next to his on the gear shift when he was driving. Xiaolei came back and complained to me. Lin Wei was acting so weird today, all touchy-feely. I nearly spit out my water. Dude, that wasn't acting weird. She likes you. Xiaolei looked completely lost. Really? I thought she was just outgoing. See, that's the common problem with so many men. Either they're afraid of overthinking it, acting all proper and mistaking flirtation for politeness, or they're too eager, pouncing the moment they get any physical contact and scaring the woman off. A truly charismatic man knows how to gently receive a woman's signals, not acting like a wooden plank with no reaction, nor charging like a wild animal. Shanayan once said something to me that I still remember. She said, when I touched your arm, if you had flinched away or asked me, I probably wouldn't have come near you again. But you looked at me and smiled, and said my hand was warm. In that moment I thought, yes, this person understands me. A woman's desire isn't ignited through sight alone. They need a sense of safety, emotional connection, a partner who can read their body language. When they touch you, they're not testing whether you'll make a move, they're testing whether you have the ability to light that ambiguous match. Respond correctly, and her fantasies will ignite like a struck match. Respond too coldly, too rationally, too awkwardly, and that little flame goes out immediately. 6 months into my relationship with Shen Nayan, we were lying in bed chatting when she suddenly asked me, how did you know I was interested in you back then? I thought for a moment and said, when you first touched the back of my hand, your fingers didn't pull away. She smiled, rolled over onto my chest, and traced circles on my collarbone with her finger. And if you hadn't reacted, then I might have missed my chance with you. No, you wouldn't have, she said, lifting her head to look into my eyes. Touched your arm without your neck, until you reacted, and if you still got no reaction. She pretended to think hard, then smiled. Then I'd find someone else to try on. I wrapped my arm around her waist and pulled her close. You wouldn't dare. She giggled at her laughter muffled against my chest like a kitten playfully撒娇. Her hand wandered restlessly across my back, her cool fingertips tracing down my spine, sending shivers through me. See? She whispered, even now, when I touch you, you still react. Of course I do, I said, kissing her forehead. Because you're not touching my body, you're touching my heart. She was quiet for a moment, then buried her face in the curve of my neck and said softly, me too. Outside, the moonlight was bright, falling on her bare shoulder like a layer of silver. I reached for the blanket and pulled it up over her, but under the covers. She secretly slipped her hand into mine, interlacing our fingers. Some ambiguous feelings don't need to be spoken aloud. The hands know, the heartbeats know, and the moonlight knows. That night, I came to understand something: women aren't unwilling to make the first move. They just want a man who can read their body language. Her hands have already said everything. Do you understand? After that night, things between Shen Nayan and me seemed to fast forward. We started dating frequently, sometimes movies, sometimes walks in the park, but more often just cuddling on my sofa, chatting idly. Her hands were always restless, not in a deliberately provocative way, but like a cat that likes to gently paw at you. By watching TV, she dressed her hand on my leg, her fingertips sadly tracing circles near my knee. When I glanced down, she'd pretend to be engrossed in the screen, but her hand never stopped moving. Finally, I couldn't hold back. I took her restless hand and danced. Are you doing that on purpose? She blinked innocently. Doing what? Where is your hand? She looked down at her hand, then up at me with a crescent moon smile. Oh, I didn't notice. If you don't like it, I'll move it. She started to pull away, but I held on tighter. I didn't say I didn't like it. Her smile deepened. Her other hand came over, and she held my right hand in both of hers like it was something precious. Her thumb slowly stroked the back of my hand. The sensation was so light, so soft, like being wrapped in warm water. My throat bobbed, and my heartbeat started to misbehave. Shanayan, I said. My voice a little hoarse. If you keep touching me like that, you're not going home tonight. She froze and slowly turned red as a boiled shrimp. But she didn't let go. She pulled my hand on the harney, interlacing our fingers one by one. She kept her head down, her bangs covering half her face. But I could see the slight curve of her lips. I didn't plan on leaving, she said, her voice barely a whisper. That night she really did stay. We curled up on the sofa talking until 2 in the morning about our childhoods, about embarrassing college stories, about the first moments we'd felt attracted to each other. She said the first time she noticed me was in the company elevator, when I held the door for a girl carrying a huge stack of files and helped her pick up a folder she dropped. I thought, this guy is really gentle, she said. So you liked me because I'm a good person? Not entirely. She tilted her head, thinking, being a good person is the foundation. But there's something else about you. You make me feel safe. Safe? Yeah. You wouldn't embarrass me. You wouldn't pull away when I got close. You wouldn't ask me, what are you doing? When I touched you, you caught me. When she said caught me, her voice was so light, as if speaking that heavily might shatter the words. A wave of emotion I couldn't name washed over me. I pulled her into my arms, my chin resting on the top of her head. Her hair was so soft, carrying a faint scent of shampoo, like grass after rain. I'll always catch you, I said. She mumbled a soft mum against my chest. I could feel her eyelashes fluttering lightly against my collarbone, ticklish like butterfly wings. In the days that followed, Shanayan grew bolder and bolder. Before she'd hesitate before touching me now. Not at all. At meals, she'd hook her foot around my calf under the table, and I glared at her. She'd stick out her tongue with a "what are you gonna do about it" expression. Walking down the street, she'd suddenly slip her hand into my coat pocket and interlace our fingers. Once, an escalator at the mall, she stood on the step below me so we were at eye level. She reached out and straightened my scarf. So naturally, as if she'd done it 1,000 times. After finishing, she didn't pull her hand back but left it resting on the back of my neck, her thumb gently pressing the skin there. Just as we reached the top of the escalator, she leaned close to my ear and said, "Your neck is so hot here." I turned to look at her. Her eyes sparkled like the stars hidden inside them. I said. She smiled, like a cat that had stolen a fish. One time, we were cooking at her place. She was chopping vegetables, and I stood behind her. Suddenly, she turned around and brought her face so close that her nose nearly touched mine. "What are you doing?" "Tying your apron." "I can't tie it myself." "Then turn around." "No." She just looked up at me with an expression in her eyes that wasn't quite a challenge, more like waiting for an answer. I reached out and pinched her chin lightly, my thumb brushing across her lips. "You've got a bit of scallion on your lips," I said. She licked her lips and laughed. "Liar, there's nothing there." "Ah, there isn't. You licked it off." She burst out laughing and punched my chest lightly. "You're so annoying." I caught her punching hand and pulled her into my arms. Her back pressed against the kitchen counter, her hands pinned at her sides, her eyelashes fluttering like butterfly wings. Her breathing quickened, her chest rising and falling, her lips slightly parted. "Shanayan, do you know what I think every time you touch me?" She shook her head. "Does this woman have any idea how badly you want to pull her into my arms and never let go?" Her face flushed bright red, all the way to her ears. She turned her head away, unable to meet my eyes, but the smile on her lips couldn't be suppressed. Then, I froze and laughed. So she'd been waiting too. I lowered my head, my lips brushing her ear as I whispered, "Because I want you to know I don't want to get close to you just because you touched me. I want to get close to you because I want to get close to you. Whether you touch me or not, I still want to." Her body trembled slightly, as if struck by something. Her hands broke free from mine and dragged around my back, her fingers gripping the fabric of my shirt tightly. Her voice muffled and a little nasal. "How are you so good with words?" "I'm not good with words," I said. "I'm just speaking from the heart." Her eyes a little red but full of laughter. She stood on her toes and kissed me, not like before. The earlier kisses had been 试探的, gentle, cautious approaches, but this one was different. It carried heat, longing and urgency that said, I don't want to wait anymore. Her hand slid from my back to my waist, her fingers lightly pinching the muscles there. My breathing grew heavier. I cupped her face in my hands, my thumbs brushing her cheekbones, and kissed her deeper. She made a soft sound, half sigh, half contentment. The kitchen faucet was still running, the sound of water masking our 急促的呼吸. The soup on the stove was bubbling over, distilled liquid extinguishing the flame as a burnt smell slowly filled the air. But neither of us paid attention, because in that moment, the whole world had shrunk to just our body heat and our heartbeats. Later, she leaned against my chest, tracing circles on my chest with her finger, and suddenly laughed. What's so funny? I asked. The soup burned. I glanced back at the stove. The bottom of the pot was already blackened. No problem. We'll order takeout. You're so nice. If you were my ex-boyfriend, you'd have yelled at me for wasting food. That's because you didn't understand, I said, kissing her forehead. Soup can be remade, but this moment with you, if we miss it, it's gone forever. She was quiet for a few seconds, then buried her face in my chest again, her voice barely audible. I really, really like you. That was the first time she'd voluntarily said the word like. Not a nod, but clearly and earnestly, I really, really like you. My heart skipped a beat, then started thundering like a drum. I tightened my arms around her, holding her close, my chin on top of her head, and said with my eyes closed, I really, really like you too. Shen Nayan. From the moment you first touched the back of my hand, I knew it's you. She laughed softly in my arms, a laugh like wind chimes, clear and beautiful. That night we ordered takeout and ate on the sofa, leaning against my shoulder, occasionally feeding me a bite from her bowl. Her hand rested on my leg, not deliberately, just naturally, as if that spot had always belonged to her. I looked down at her hand, slender, pale, with light pink nail polish. I lifted it to my lips and kissed it. She turned to look at me, her eyes soft as still water. You know, I used to think it was shameful for a girl to make the first move. That girls shouldn't be too 主动, or they'd seem cheap. Who told you that? My mom, my best friend, all those relationship bloggers. She pouted. They all say girls should be reserved, not too forward, or guys won't appreciate them. And what do you think now? She thought for a moment. I think they're wrong. If I hadn't touched you first, you might never have known I liked you. Touching you isn't about lacking reserve, it's about trusting you. About believing you won't think less of me for it. You're right, I said, squeezing her hand. And when you touch me, it's not just you making a move, it's both of us moving toward each other. Being 主动 is never a one-person thing. She looked at me, something shimmering in her eyes. She sat up straight, cupped my face in both hands, and slowly stroked my cheekbones with her thumbs. Her expression was serious, it seemed like she wasn't joking. So tell me, she said, when I touched your arm, what were you thinking? I was thinking, this girl's hands are so warm. And when I put my hand on your leg, I was thinking, is she touching me? Then why didn't you move away? Because I didn't want to, I said, looking into her eyes. I wanted you to know that every inch of me welcomes your touch. Her eyes reddened again, but this time she couldn't hold back the tears. They fell not from sadness, but from the overwhelming feeling of being understood, being caught. She wet her face with her hand and laughed. You always make me cry. This isn't crying, I said, wiping the tears from her cheeks. This is your body saying, you chose the right person. She laughed through her tears and threw her arms around my neck, hanging on to me. I held her waist, feeling her heartbeat against my chest fast and strong. Touch me whenever you want, I whispered in her ear. Don't hesitate, don't test. I'll love it no matter where you touch me. She looked up at me, eyes red, but her smile bright as the moon outside the window. I'll remember that. Don't complain later that I'm the clingy. Never. Moonlight streamed through the window, falling on us like a thin veil of silk. Shen Nayan nestled against my chest, her breathing slowly evening out. Her hand still rested on my chest, her fingers twitching slightly, as if even in her dreams, she was still reaching out to touch. I looked down at her, she'd fallen asleep, a faint smile still on her lips. I kissed her forehead gently and pulled the blanket from the sofa over her. In that moment, my heart was very quiet, so quiet I could hear its own beating steady and gentle. And that heartbeat was saying, thank you, Shen Nayan, for coming closer to me. Thank you for using your hands to tell me you're willing. For the rest of our lives, every place you touch, I will catch it. Time passed like a gentle stream, occasionally rippling. Shen Nayan moved in with me. She said she'd had enough of her tiny single room that leaked in summer and lighted droughts in winter. I said, just admit you couldn't bear to be apart from me, plopped her suitcase at my feet, and said matter-of-factly, "Fine. I couldn't bear to be apart from you." "Happy?" She said it without even blushing, a far cry from the girl whose ears would turn red at the slightest touch. Sometimes I wondered if every woman has the people living inside her are cautious. She tightened dear and bold, love-demanding little tiger. That was Shania. She was always the quiet, reserved girl, but with me, she grew bolder by the day. Living together, I discovered a habit of shun me on. She loved to ambush me when I least expected it. When I was cooking in the kitchen, she'd come up behind me, wrap her arms around my waist, and rub her face against my back. "What if hot oil splashes on you? Then you'll block it for me," she'd say. "My back doesn't have eyes," I'd point out. "Then turn around and hold me while you cook," she'd counter. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I said, "You hold me, and I'll cook." And she really didn't let go. She clung to me like a koala, making it nearly impossible to move my arms. "Shanayan, if you don't let go, this is really going to burn." "Let it burn. We'll order takeout. You said that last time. And then you woke up hungry at midnight and kicked me out of bed to make you noodles." She laughed softly against my back, with sound vibrating through my shirt and tickling my skin. "That's because the noodles you make are so good. So you're only with me for my noodles, huh?" She peeked out from behind me, tilting her head up to look at me, her eyes sparkling. "I'd entirely. What do I smell like?" "I can't describe it. It's a comforting smell." She buried her face in my back again and took a deep breath like a greedy kitten. "Like a quilt that's been dried in winter sunlight, warm and cozy." Her words turned my heart into a ball of soft cotton. I turned off the stove and turned around. She immediately pressed her face against my chest, her arms around my neck. I looked down at her. Her eyes were closed, her lashes trembling slightly, her lips curved in a contented smile. "Shania, you're putting me in a dangerous position." She opened one eye to look at me. "If you keep this up or forget cooking, I'll be cooking you instead." She froze, and her face turned bright redder than the flame on the stove. She shoved me away, turned around, and pretended to tidy the dishes, the tips of her ears red as if about to bleed. "You go cook. I'm hungry." I laughed, turned the stove back on, and tossed the vegetables into the pan. Sizzle. As the oil smoke rose, she stood behind me and tapped my back with a pair of chopsticks. "What? Say that thing again," she said quietly. "What thing?" I turned to look at her. She was looking down, pretending to fiddle with the chopsticks, but the smile on her lips was impossible to hide. I turned off the stove again, turned around, and planted my hands on the counter behind her, caging her in. She looked up at me, nervous, expectant, and a little flustered. I said, I lowered my head until my nose touched hers. "If you keep this up, I won't cook the vegetables. I'll cook you." "Did you hear me?" Her breathing grew shallow and quick, her chest rising and falling, her lashes fluttering like a startled butterfly's wings. Slowly, her hand rose, her fingers lightly touching my chin, then tracing along my jaw to behind my ear, her fingertip rubbing my earlobe. "Your ears are so hot," she said, her voice soft as a breeze. "Because you're touching them." "Then I'll stop." She started to pull her hand back. I caught her wrist and pressed it against the counter. "Who said you could stop?" She bit her lip and smiled, her eyes curving into crescent moons. She stood on her toes and put her lips to my ear, her voice light as a secret. "So are you going to cook or not?" "Not anymore." "Then what are you going to cook?" I swept her up in my arms. She gasped, her legs instinctively wrapping around my waist, her arms locking around my neck. I carried her out of the kitchen, reaching back to turn off the stove as we passed. The vegetables were probably burning again, but I couldn't have cared less. I laid Shanayan on the bed. She lay on her back, her hair spread across the pillow like an open flower. She looked into my eyes, no fear, just a gentle certainty. She reached up and touched my face, her thumb brushing my cheekbone as if tracing a painting. "You know," she said, "I never thought I'd be so 주동 about getting close to anyone. And now I think getting close to you was the best thing I've ever done." I leaned down, resting my forehead against hers. Our breaths intertwined. Her hand slid slowly to my back, her fingertips tracing my spine, raising a trail of fine shivers. "Shanayan, yeah, I love you." Her eyes reddened instantly, her lips trembling slightly. She tried to speak but couldn't. She pulled me down hard, hugging me tightly, her face buried in the curve of my neck. I felt the skin there grow wet. "I love you too," she said, her voice muffled and nasal. So much." Outside, the shul was dark except for a few slivers of light slipping through the curtains, falling on her bare shoulder like a thin layer of gold dust. I reached for the blanket and pulled it over us both. She wriggled under it until she found a comfortable spot, curling up against me. "Your heart is beating so fast," she said, "because you're in my arms." And if I'm in your arms every day, won't you get heart disease? Then let me, I said, kissing the top of her head. It'll be worth it. She laughed. The sound muffled against my chest. I distant drums beating against my heart. In the days that followed, Shenyan's little gestures multiplied. Sometimes they were blatant, like when I was reading on the sofa. She climbed right onto my lap, placed her chin on my shoulder, and rubbed her nose against my neck. When I asked what she was doing, she'd say nothing. I just like the way your neck smells. I'd laugh and say, are you part dog? And she'd open her mouth and gently bite my neck, leaving a faint mark. Now I'm a dog, she'd say proudly. I touch the bite mark on my neck and look at her smug little face. This woman is getting more and more out of hand. But the truth was, I couldn't do a thing about it. Other times, her touches were casual. When we walked together, she'd suddenly slip her hand into my back pocket and just leave it there, not holding my hand, not saying anything, just resting it there. When I looked back at her, she'd put on an innocent face. Where's your hand? In your pocket. What, not allowed? Allowed. Put it anywhere you liked. Once, when we were eating out, a couple sat across from us. The boyfriend was being extremely attentive, serving food, pouring water. Shen Nayan glanced at them, then kicked me lightly under the table. Look at him. What about him? How attentive he is. Am I not attentive to you? You are. She paused, a mischievous smile curling her lips. But you're not touching my leg under the table. I nearly choked on my water. This girl's filter was getting thinner and thinner. Shen Nayan, we're in public. So, she blinked. I didn't ask you to touch up there. I said leg. I looked at her innocent face and thought, the more reserved she appears in public, the more fancy she is with me. But honestly, I liked it. When a woman is willing to drop all her pretenses with you, to show you her most real, most unguarded self, it means she truly sees you as her person. That night when we got home, she came out of the shower wearing my old t-shirt. It was too big, slipping off one shoulder to reveal her collarbone. She was drying her hair with a towel, bent him over, sat on the edge of the bed, and handed me the towel. Dry my hair for me. I took the towel, helped dry her hair a bit, then picked up the hairdo. Her hair was fine and soft, running my fingers through it felt like touching silk. She closed her eyes, a slight smile on her lips, looking utterly content. You know, I said as I dried, every time you ask me to dry your hair, I feel like you're testing me. Testing what? My self-control. She opened her eyes and glanced at me sideways, her eyes full of laughter. And how's your self-control? That great, She smiled like a sly fox. She reached up and turned off the hairdo. The room felt silent except for the warm yellow light from the corner lamp. She turned around, her hands on my shoulders, her face close to mine. Then don't you sit, she said. Her hair was still wet, droplets falling from the ends onto my hands cool. But her breath was warm, her palms warm. Her whole body like a gentle flame slowly enveloping me. Shen Nayan, your hair isn't dry yet. Let it be wet. You'll catch a cold. Then hold me, and I won't be cold. I sighed and pulled her into my arms. Her t-shirt was so thin I could feel her warmth through it. Her body had just been sunbathing. Her hand roamed restlessly across my back, her fingertips tracing my shoulder blades, sending tingles through me. Your hands are cold, I said. I just got out of the shower. Cold hands and feet are an old problem for me. Then let me warm them. I took her hands and placed them on my chest, warming them with my body heat. She was quiet for a moment, then pressed her cheek against my chest, listening to my heartbeat. Your heart is still beating so fast, she said. It always does. Because you're always touching me. Then I'll stop. You wouldn't dare. She laughed, the sound muffled against my chest, a distant thunder muffled but shaking my heart. Her eyes glistening now with tears, but with the moistness that comes from being wrapped in tenderness. You know, she said, sometimes I wonder what would have happened if we hadn't gotten together. There's no such if. What if? No what ifs, I said, squeezing her hand. From the moment you first touched the back of my hair, that if ceased to exist. She was quiet for a few seconds, then softly said mum and buried her face in my chest again. Her hand slid slowly to my waist, her fingers lightly gripping the fabric there, as if afraid I might run away. I won't run, I said. I know, her voice was very soft, but I still want to hold on. That night she slept deeply, her hand always on my chest, as if afraid I might disappear in the night. I lay in bed, listening to her steady breathing. The moonlight filtered through the curtains, casting a pale glow on her face. When she slept, she looked like a child, her lips slightly pursed, her lashes occasionally fluttering, lost in some dream. I kissed her forehead gently. She unconsciously burrowed closer to me. while mumbling something unintelligible, a soft, sticky sound, like melted sugar. I remembered a question she'd once asked me. What do you think is the most important thing in a relationship? I'd given many answers: trust, understanding, tolerance, communication. She'd shaken her head at all of them. Then what is it? I'd asked. She'd taken my hand, placed it in hers, interlaced our fingers one by one, and looked into my eyes. It's that when I touch you, you don't pull away. In that moment, I'd suddenly understood. For a woman, security isn't about grand promises or dramatic declarations. It's about the fact that when she wants to get closer, you don't step back. When she reaches out, you catch her. Her touch is her language, the words you can't say. I like you, I need you, I want you. If you understand, she'll give you her whole heart. If you don't, she'll slowly withdraw her hand, along with all those unspoken words, and hide them away, never to bring them out again. So men, when a woman starts touching you, don't flinch. Don't ask, what are you doing? Don't pretend not to feel it. Look at her. Take her hands, they're warm. It's that simple. And yet so many people can't do something so simple. I've been with Shanayan for over a year now, and she still touches me all the time. Sometimes deliberately, sometimes unconsciously, but every time I respond. Not a calculated response, but a genuine, natural one. Because I truly love it when she touches me, when she gets close, when she rests her hand on me. It gives me a feeling of security. Once she asked me, when did you know you liked me? I thought about it. When you first touched the back of my hand and your fingers didn't pull away. In that moment, I knew this girl, I'm going to marry her. She smiled, her eyes curving into crescent moons. When did you know you liked me? I asked in return. She tilted her head. That time you helped me pick up the folder. When you crouched down, I saw that the back of your collar had flipped up, and I really wanted to fix it for you, but we weren't close yet, and I was too shy. So you held back. I held back, she nodded, but I kept thinking about it. Every time you walked past me afterward, I look at the back of your neck. It's her neck, whether your collar was flipped up. I touched the back of my own neck and laughed. So when you finally fixed my collar, it wasn't Oran? Of course not, she raised her chin proudly. I waited a long time for that chance. I pulled her into my arms, my chin on top of her head, and closed my eyes. Her hair tickled my chin, soft as a spring breeze. From now on, don't wait for chances, I said. Touch me whenever you want, fix my collar whenever you want. My collar belongs to you for life. She pressed her face into my chest, her voice muffled and a little nasal. You said it. No take-backs. No take-backs. The wind blew through the window, stirring the curtains and the hair on Shen Yan's shoulders. I reached out and tucked the hair behind her ear. She looked up at me, her eyes soft as still water. What is it? Nothing. It just feels so good to be touched by you. She smiled, cupped my face in her hands, and slowly stroked my cheekbones with her thumbs. Her fingers were warm all the way hard. Then I'll touch you every day, she said. For the rest of my life. Okay? The moon outside was full. Moonlight poured into the room, falling on her face like a silver veil. I leaned down and kissed her forehead. She closed her eyes, her lips curved in a smile, her hand still on my face, unwilling to move away. In that moment I thought her. The luckiest thing in this life isn't meeting her. It's that when she reached out, I didn't pull away. The days passed like they were soaked in honey, sweet enough to be cloying. Shanayan and I had been together for nearly 2 years, but her little gestures hadn't diminished. If anything, they'd multiplied. Sometimes I even suspected she saw me as a life-size body pillow, taking me everywhere, touching and nuzzling me whenever she wanted. Once, he was pushing the cart ahead of me when she suddenly stopped, turned around, and looked at me. I thought she'd forgotten something, but she walked over, zipped up my jacket, patted my chest, and said, "It's windy. Don't catch a cold." An older woman nearby saw us and smiled. "Young man, your wife is so caring." Shan Neon's face turned bright red. She shoved the cart and hurried off so fast I had to run to catch up. "Shan Nayan, why are you running?" "I'm not running." Her face was still red, the tips of her ears red, though she tried to look composed. "Then why are you blushing?" "The wind." "What wind? We're in a supermarket." She put the cart between us and pretended to study the soy sauce bottles on the shelf. I walked around the cart, stood beside her, and gently squeezed her fingers. Her hands were cold, her fingertips icy. "Why are your hands so cold?" "None of your business." "If not me, then who?" I held her hand in both of mine, warming it, but the corners of her mouth slowly lifted like a cat that had stolen a fish, delighted but trying to appear indifferent. "Shania." "What?" "When you zipped up my jacket, What were you thinking? She glanced at me, then quickly looked away. Nothing, just it. That's it. What else? Her voice rose half an octave, but her confidence was clearly lacking. I leaned close to her ear and lowered my voice when you zipped up my jacket. Your hand lingered on my chest for 2 extra seconds. Her ears turned crimson. She yanked her hand back, pushed the cart forward, and walked away without looking back. You're reading too much into it. My hands were cold, so I warmed them on your chest. I smiled and followed her, not exposing her further, but I knew it wasn't about cold hands. It was about wanting to touch me but not daring to do it directly, so she found an excuse. Women are so cute, sometimes wanting something but coming up with 1,000 reasons to hide it. When we left the supermarket, it was already dark. The street had cast a dim yellow glow, stretching our shadows long on the ground. Shania walked on my left, carrying a bag in her right hand. Her left hand hung naturally at her side, her fingers occasionally brushing the back of my hand. I glanced at her. She was looking up at the stars, her expression focused, as if studying some astronomical problem. But I knew she wasn't studying stars, she was studying how to accidentally hold my hand. I smiled and reached out. Taking her left hand, her fingers twitched slightly, then slowly relaxed, intertwining with mine. What are you doing? She asked, pretending not to know. Making sure your hands don't get cold. That's what you said in the supermarket. Good excuses bear repeating. She burst out laughing, a soft laugh like rustling leaves. She squeezed my hand and leaned closer to me, her shoulder pressing against my arm. You know, she said, I used to hate holding hands. What? Because my hands are always cold. I was afraid people would be disgusted. I'm not. I know. She looked up at me, her eyes reflecting the street wide. That's why I'm so happy when you hold my hand. Not because my hands get warm, but because you don't find me disgusting. I stopped walking and turned to face her. Startled as she stopped too, looking up at me with a slightly confused expression. Shania, I said, your cold hands are your fault. They're God's way of giving me an opportunity. Be saying, see, this girl's hands need warming. Go ahead. Her lips trembling slightly, she tried to speak but couldn't. Rubbed her eyes with her free hand, then looked up at me with a smile. You? Her voice a little hoarse. You always say things like that. You're not wearing makeup today. Then you're going to make me cry out my contacts. You're not wearing contacts either. She was stumped for 2 seconds, then punched my chest. Can't you just let me win? I caught her punching hand, held both her hands in mine, and pulled her into my arms. She pressed her face against my chest. I could feel her lashes fluttering against my collarbone, ticklish. Shania, yeah, your hands aren't cold at all. Iron? Really? I said. Because your hands are in my heart. My heart is warm, so your hands are warm too. Basic physics. She laughed softly against my chest, the sound vibrating through me. Which gym teacher taught you physics? Doesn't matter who taught it. The principal is right. She didn't argue. She just sat quietly in my arms, her hands slowly slipping free from mine, wrapping around my back, fingers interlacing to hold me close. Pedestrians looked back at us, some smiling. A little girl tugged her mother's hand and said, Mommy, look, that uncle is hugging that big sister really tight. The mother quickly pulled her daughter away, saying, Don't let that kid, she shouldn't see that. Come on. Shania heard and buried her face deeper. This is your fault. What's the problem? I'm afraid they'll think I have an unreliable boyfriend. How am I unreliable? You're unreliable in every way. She lifted her head from my chest, her eyes red but smiling brightly. But I like unreliable. I bent down and kissed her forehead. She closed her eyes, her lashes fluttering like butterfly wings. The street twilight fell on her face, making her skin look as delicate as porcelain. Her arms were still around my waist, not letting go. I had no intention of letting go either. We just stood there by the roadside, like two trees that had grown together, roots intertwined, inseparable and unwilling to separate. That night when we got home, Shania went to take a shower first. I sat on the sofa, listening to the sound of running water from the bathroom and singing. She wasn't a good singer, she was tone deaf, but she didn't know it, singing with total immersion. I leaned back on the sofa, eyes closed, listening to her off-key singing, the corners of my mouth curving up unconsciously. The bathroom door opened. A cloud of steam emerged, carrying the faint scent of her body wash. She was wearing my old t-shirt, her hair wet, barefoot, leaving a trail of wet footprints on the floor. Why aren't you wearing your slippers again? I forgot. She stuck out her tongue, jumped onto the sofa, and rested her wet head on my shoulder. Droplets fell from her hair onto my shirt, leaving small wet patches. Shania, you're getting my shirt wet again. Your shirt is my shirt. If it's wet, it's my shirt that's wet. Bad logic. What's wrong with my logic? She looked up at me, completely unapologetic. You said it yourself, what's yours is mine, and what's mine is still mine. You're worsen. Don't you remember? I had said that, but under duress. If we got married someday, who would manage the money? The house? Yours said a car. And me. She thought for a moment, then said you're mine too. I said fine, you can have everything. She'd smiled like a cat that had stolen a fish, then leaned in and kissed me, saying, that's more like it. Since then, that sentence had become her sort of authority. Willed it whenever convenient. My shirt gets wet, your shirt is my shirt. iPhone dies. Your power bank is my power bank. She eats my last piece of chocolate. Your stomach is my stomach, I'm eating it so you don't have to worry about gaining weight. I was left speechless by her wizard logic, but the way she rambled nonsense was so endearing. Shanayan, your hair is still wet. Let me get the hair to we. No need, she hugged my arm, not letting me get up, just dry it with a towel. I sighed, picked up the towel draped over the armrest, and dried her hair. Her hair was soft as silk. Running my fingers through it, I could feel the warmth of her scalp. She closed her eyes, her lips curved, like a cat being patted, making contented sounds. You know, I said as I dried, every time you ask me to dry your hair, I feel like you're testing me. Testing what? She opened one eye to look at me. My patience. And how's your patience? It was fine, but you're wearing it thin. She smiled a wicked smile. She took the towel from my hand, tossed it aside, then turned around, kneeling on the sofa, her hands on my shoulders, her face very, very close. Then don't hold back, she said, her voice light as a feather. I never asked you to. Her hair was still wet, droplets falling from the ends onto the back of my hand, cool, but her breath was warm, her gaze warm, her whole body like a fire slowly igniting me. My hands rested on her waist. The t-shirt there was wet, clinging to her skin. I could feel her warmth through the thin fabric. She didn't flinch or pull back. She leaned closer, pressing my hand tighter against her. Shania. Yeah. Are you sure? Instead of answering, she cut my face, her thumbs brushing my lips, then slowly leaned in, replacing her thumbs with her lips. That kiss was very light, very slow, as if tasting something precious, deepening little by little, melting little by little. Her hand slid from my face to the back of my neck, her fingers threading through my hair. My breathing grew heavy and urgent. My hand slid from her waist to her back, pulling her close. She made a very soft sound, half sigh, half contentment, so small yet so clear in the quiet room. The wind blew through the window, stirring the curtains and drying the droplets from her hair. Those droplets fell on my arms, my face, my neck, cool, in stark contrast to her burning skin. You're so hot, I said against her ear. Because you're holding me. Her voice trembled slightly, but her tone was firm. Then I'll let go. You wouldn't dare. I laughed and held her tighter. Her fingers traced slow circles on the back of my neck, so light, so soft, like being wrapped in warm water. So comfortable I didn't want to move. You know, she said, her voice muffled against my chest, I used to hate it when people touched my neck. What? Because it's sensitive. I thought letting someone touch your neck was an intimate thing, only for the closest person. And now? She looked up at me, her eyes glistening. Bright. Now when you touch my neck it feels good. Not physically good, but that feeling of being accepted, like getting you my most vulnerable spot, and you won't hurt me. I lowered my head, pressed my lips to the side of her neck, and gave it a light kiss. Her body jerked sharply, as if shocked. Her fingers clutched the fabric of my shirt. What are you doing? Her voice was a little flustered. Touching you. I looked up at her. Her face was red as if on fire. You did that on purpose? Yeah? I did. I smiled at her. You don't like it? She bit her lip, her eyes glaring at me, but there was no anger in them, only a soft mix of embarrassment and annoyance. I learned it from you. She was speechless. After a few seconds, she punched my chest and buried her face in my arms, not speaking. I could feel her face burning against my chest, like a hot towel. Shania. Shut up. You're blushing. I said shut up. Your ears are red too. If you say one more word, I'll bite you. I couldn't help but laugh, my chest shaking with it, embarrassed by my laughter. She opened her mouth and bit my chest lightly, not hard, but leaving a faint ring of teeth marks, and the mark was right over my heart. Shanayan, you've left a mark on my heart. She froze, then looked at the bite mark. After a moment she smiled a very soft, light smile. Good, she said. I pulled her back into my arms, my chin on top of her head, eyes closed. Her hair was still damp, brushing against my chin. Cool, but my heart was hot, so hot it felt like my whole chest was burning. Shanayan? Yeah? You don't need to leave a mark. My heart has only ever had you in it. She was quiet for a long time, so long I thought she'd fallen asleep. Then I heard her whisper, so softly it seemed afraid of waking something. Me too. The moonlight outside was bright, shining on the floor like a layer of silver frost. I held Shanayan. She held me, the two of us curled up on the sofa, like small animals keeping each other warm. Her finger traced unconscious circles on my chest slowly, steadily, as if measuring the distance of my heartbeat. What are you drawing? I asked. Drawing your heart. Have you figured it out? I have. She looked up at me, eyes shining. Your heart is round, soft, warm like a freshly cooked sweet rice ball. A rice ball? A rice ball. She smiled. White, sticky, with a sweet center that oozes out when you bite it. So you see me as food. What else? She blinked. You're not edible. Who says? I lowered my head and bit her shoulder lightly, the same way she'd bitten me, leaving a faint mark. She yelped, covered her shoulder, and glared at me. Are you part dog? I learned it from you. She was so exasperated by my quick imitation that she opened her mouth to bite me again. But this time I didn't let her. I wrapped one arm around her waist, cupped her face with the other, and kissed her deeply. That kiss was deep and heavy, as if trying to mold her entirely into me. Her fingers threaded through my hair, gripping tightly, as if afraid of falling. The moon outside had slipped behind a cloud. The room darkened, with only the distant glow of streetlight filtering through the curtains, casting a hazy light on the floor. That light fell just on Shamian's ankle, making her skin look as warm as white jade. I reached out and held her ankle. Her ankle was slender, easily encircled by one hand. She twitched, trying to pull it back, but I didn't let go. Are ankles sensitive too? I asked. She didn't answer, but her face turned red, completely red. She buried her face in the sofa cushion, not letting me see, but her ankle didn't pull away. She let me hold it. Shanayan? Yeah, her voice muffled by the cushion. You know, you look especially beautiful when you're shy. Shut up. I mean it. I said, shut up, can't you hear? I laughed, released her ankle, and pulled her out of the cushion. Her face was red as a boiled shrimp, her eyes wet, like a lake after rain. You? She wiped her face with her hand. You always embarrass me. Then I won't say anything. No. So should I say something or not? She thought for a moment, as if making a difficult decision. You can talk, but don't say anything that embarrasses me too much. What counts as too much? Just what you said earlier. Her voice grew softer and softer, until it was barely audible. I suppressed a smile, reached out, and brushed the stray hairs from her forehead, my fingertip grazing her cheekbone. Her skin was smooth and soft like a peeled egg. I won't say it, I said. I'll find another way. Before she could react, I'd scooped her up. She yelped, instinctively throwing her arms around my neck and her legs around my waist. What are you doing? Her voice was a little panicked. Taking you to bed. I can walk. I know. I carry her toward the bedroom, but I want to hold you. She didn't speak, just buried her face in the curve of my neck, her breath warm on my collarbone. Her fingers lightly squeezed the back of my neck as if saying, fine, have it your way. The bedroom light was off, only moonlight coming through the window, casting a silvery white glow on the floor. I laid her on the bed. She lay on her back, her hair spread across the pillow, the moonlight on her face, making her silhouette look like a painting. She reached out, took the hem of my shirt, and gently tugged. I leaned down, my hands on either side of her, and looked at her. What is it? I asked. You're too far away, she said, her voice soft as a breeze. I smiled, lowered my head, and rested my forehead against hers. Her breath brushed my face warm, with a hint of mint toothpaste. Better? She didn't answer. She reached up, cupped my face, and slowly stroked my cheekbones with her thumbs. Her fingers were so warm all the way to my heart. Almost, she said. I lowered my head a little more, my nose touching hers. Now, she smiled, her eyes curving into crescent moons. She lifted her head slightly and touched her lips to mine like a dragonfly skimming water. Just a brief touch. Now it's perfect, she said. The moon emerged, and behind the clouds, its light pouring back into the room, falling on us like a thin veil of silk. Shanian's hands were still on my face, not letting go. Her eyes looked at me with tenderness, certainty, and a hint of undisguised joy. You know, she said, I used to think ambiguity was the most tortuous thing in the world. Uneasy, afraid to get close, yet unwilling to walk away. And now, Now I think ambiguity is the most beautiful thing in the world. She paused, because after ambiguity, there's you. My heart melted into a puddle. I bent down and kissed her eyelids. Her lashes fluttered against my lips, like butterfly wings. Shannayan? Yeah. Thank you for touching me. She froze, then smiled a very light, soft smile, like moonlight falling on water. Thank you for not pulling away, she said. The moonlight outside was so bright, as if trying to plate the whole world in silver. I held Shannayan, her hand on my chest, her fingertips unconsciously moving, as if playing a silent song. That song, I think, was called I Love You, and passed quickly. Before I knew it, Shannayan and I had been together for almost 3 years. 3 years isn't too long, nor too short enough for a person to go from stranger to habit, and enough for a heart to go from flutter to peace. Shannayan was my peace. She no longer treated herself as an outsider. She needed an excuse to touch me, adjusting my collar, brushing dust off my shoulder, writing words on my hand for me to guess. Now she didn't bother with any pretense. She touched what she wanted when she wanted, as confidently as a landlord collecting rent. Last week, we were curled up on the sofa watching a movie. She was tucked into my arms, her legs draped over the armrest, her head on my chest. One of her hands had slipped under my sweater, her palm pressed against my side. It was indeed cold that day. Her hand was like ice, making me shiver when it touched my skin. Shannayan, could you not put your hand inside my shirt? No. And it's not cold in there? In there I have you. She said it as if it were the most natural thing in the world, like I was her personal space heater. I sighed, pulled her hand out from under my sweater, breathed on it, rubbed it between my hands, and tucked it back under my shirt. She froze, then laughed, her eyes curving. What are you doing? You just put my hand back. Didn't you say you were cold? I'm warming your hand for you. Then why did you pull it out? To rub it and warm it up first. If I put it back in cold, I'd freeze to death. She was so amused by my logic that she shook with laughter, her hand wriggling under my shirt, her nails scratching my skin ticklish and tingly. I caught her restless hand and pressed it over my heart. Stop moving. Why? Because when you move I get ticklish. What happens when you're ticklish? I laugh. And then we can't watch the movie. Her eyes full of mischievous light. And don't watch. With that, her hand began wandering under my shirt again, her fingertips sliding from my side to my stomach, bent slowly upward, pausing at my ribs to trace a circle there. My breathing grew uneven. The dialogue from the movie became a mohu background noise, all my attention focused on that hand of hers. Shannaya? Yeah? What exactly are you trying to do? She poked her head out from my sweater collar, rested her chin on my collarbone, and looked up at me. Her lips, bare of lipstick, were a soft pink, like a freshly washed peach. She said, her tone as straightforward as saying no one toward her. You're already touching me. I want to touch you more. I looked into her bright eyes. A voice inside me said this woman is getting more and more out of hand. But another voice said you can't do anything about it. You've never been able to do anything about it. Without a word, I pulled her out from under my shirt and sat her on my lap, facing me. Startled by the sudden move, she braced her hands on my shoulders and looked down at me, her hair falling on either side, enclosing us in a small, private space. This makes it easier for you to touch me, I said. She blinked, and a slow smile spread across her lips, down the bridge of my nose over the tip past my philtrum, and stopped at my lips. Her fingertip was soft to slightly cool, icing gently on my lips. Your lips are so dry, she said. Fall weather. She picked up the lip balm from the side table, uncapped it, applied a layer to her own lips, and then leaned down and touched her lips to mine. Very slow, like two butterflies meeting in midair, their wings brushing before separating. Not dry anymore, she said, her face slightly pink. I licked my lips. There was a faint peach flavor, her lip balm. Were you applying lip balm or kissing me? Both. She was completely unapologetic. I laughed and gently pinched her chin. Shannayan, you weren't like this before. Like what? Before? Your ears would turn red for half an hour just from touching the back of my hand. Here you're straddling me and applying lip balm. She was embarrassed by my words and covered my mouth with her hand. Stop talking. I kissed her palm. She flinched as if burned, pulling her hand back and glaring at me. But there was no real anger in her eyes, just that familiar mix of shyness and soft annoyance. You've learned it to be bad, she said. I learned it from you, I told you. She MPH'd, wrapped her arms around my neck, and buried her face in the curve of my neck, where breath was warm against my, carrying the sweet scent of peach. Her other hand was untitled. Her fingertip traced slow circles on the back of my neck, from my hairline down to the start of my spine, then back again. 真那样? Yeah. Do you know that every time you touch my neck I react? Her hand paused, then resumed tracing, but even lighter now, as if afraid of breaking something. What kind of reaction? Heart races, breathing quickens, body temperature rises, everything from the physiology textbook. She lifted her head from my neck and looked at me, her eyes filled with curiosity, a little nervousness, and a hint of undisguised pride. Really? Really? Then why don't you pull away? Why would I? Because, she bit her lip. If you didn't want it, you could move away. I cupped her face in my hands, my thumbs stroking her cheekbones, and looked into her eyes. 真那样, I do want it. I want you to touch me, to come close to me, to want me. When you touch me, I have never not wanted it. Not once. Her eyes reddened, her lips trembling. She squeezed her eyes shut, and when she opened them, tears fell onto my hands hot. Why do you always make me cry? Her voice was nasal. Softy, this isn't crying, I said, wiping the tears from her face. This is your body saying, you chose the right person. She laughed through her tears and punched my chest lightly. There you go with that line again. If it works, it's worth repeating. She sniffled and wrapped her arms back around my neck and leaned her whole body against me, her cheek pressed to mine. I could feel her lashes fluttering against my cheekbone ticklish, like butterfly wings. You know, she whispered, I used to think liking someone meant having them in your heart. Now I think liking someone means wanting to be close to them with your body too. Heart wants, body wants, both want. That's real liking. Do you want my body? She didn't answer, but her hand slid from the back of my neck to my chest, her palm over my heartbeat, bent slowly downward past my ribs, my stopping at my waistband. Her finger hooked into my belt and tugged lightly. What do you think? She looked up at me, fire in her eyes, not a blazing fire, but a quietly burning one, not scorching but hot enough. I took her hand, interlaced her fingers, and pressed her down onto the sofa. Her hair spread across the cushion like an open flower. The lamplight fell on her face, softening her features like a watercolor painting. 真那样? Yeah, I love you. She smiled, a very light, soft smile like ripples on a lake touched by wind. She reached up and touched my face, her thumb tracing my brow, my cheekbone. I jaw as if memoing a painting. I love you too, she said. That night we didn't watch the movie. The TV stayed on, playing the credits, then automatically jumping to the next film, but neither of us watched. Outside, the wind was strong, rustling the leaves, but inside it was warm as spring. Later she lay on my chest, her finger tracing circles on my collarbone. Her breathing gradually evened out. I thought she'd fallen asleep, but when I looked down her eyes were open, staring at the ceiling. What are you thinking about? I asked. You. I'm right here. What about me? The first time you held my hand, she said. You suddenly took my hand and said, you were afraid my hands were cold. My heart was pounding so fast, I thought you'd hear it. I did hear it. She looked up at me, disbelieving. Liar, how could you possibly hear it? Your heartbeat was so loud I could feel your pulse, I said, taking her hand and placing it over my heart, just like you can feel mine right now. She was quiet for a few seconds, her palm against my chest, feeling the beat. Your heart is still beating so fast, she said, because you're in my arms. Then if I'm in your arms every day, will you get heart disease? You've asked that before. And what did you say? Then let me. It'll be worth it. She smiled and buried her face in my chest. Her voice muffled, you're so good. What's good about me? Everything, she thought for a moment, then added, especially the fact that you never pull away when I touch you. You have no idea how important that is to a woman. I do know. How? Because you told me, I said, stroking her hair. You said security is in the house. A car, savings. It's that when you touch me, I don't pull away. I've never forgotten that. She was quiet for a long time, so long I thought she'd fallen asleep. Then I heard her say very softly, as if afraid of disturbing something. Thank you for not pulling away from me. I tightened my arms around her, holding her close, my chin on top of her head, my eyes closed. 真那样? You don't need to thank me. I'm the one who should be. Thank you for being willing to touch me, to come close to me, to put your hands on me. You don't know, every time you touch me, it's like a I like you whispered in my ear. That's why I never pull away, because I don't want to miss a single I like you that you say to me. But I could feel her tears falling again, one by one, onto my chest hot. I didn't wipe them away, because I knew they weren't sad tears. understood, uncherished. The wind outside stopped. The leaves stopped rustling. The whole world grew quiet, as if asleep. Only Shenyan's breathing rose and fell against my chest, steady and gentle. That night, I dreamed I was standing in a vast grassland. The wind blew, and waves of grass rolled across the field. Wearing a white dress, her hair blowing in the wind, she reached out her hand to me. I walked over and took it. Her hand was warm all the way to my heart. In the dream, I lowered my head and kissed her forehead. She closed her eyes and smiled. Her smile bright as the sun over the grassland. When I woke, Shania was still curled against me, her hand on my chest, her fingertips twitching slightly, as if even in dreams, she was still reaching out to touch me. The corners of her mouth were curved and knew what sweet dream she was having. She burrowed unconsciously closer, mumbling something unintelligible, a soft, sticky sound, like melted sugar. Outside, the sky was just beginning to lighten. Morning light filtered through the curtain's gap, falling on her face, making her skin look almost translucent. I looked at her for a long time until the morning light became daylight, until she opened her eyes and saw me watching her. "You're awake." Her voice was husky with sleep, soft and weak. "I've been awake for a while. Why are you staring at me?" "Because you're beautiful." She blushed and covered her face. "It's so early. What are you doing?" I meant it. She really was beautiful when she just woken up, hair messy, pillow creases on her face, eyes not fully open, like a little animal just emerging from hibernation. Adorably dazed. "Shania?" "Yeah? What do you want to do today?" She thought for a moment. "I want to stay in bed. And then I want to eat the noodles you make. And then she rolled over onto my chest, chin resting on her hands. Looking up at me. "I want you to hold me." "Aren't I holding you already? That tight enough?" I tightened my arms, pulling her into me. Her face pressed against my neck, her breath warm on my collarbone. Her hand traced circles on my chest, cool fingertips, but the shapes they drew were warm. "Shania?" "Yeah." "Your hands are cold again. Then warm them for me." I took her hands and placed them on my chest, warming them with my body heat. She was quiet for a moment, then whispered very softly, "I want you to warm my hands forever. Okay? For a lifetime. Okay?" She smiled, a very light. She lifted her head, kissed my chin, then nestled back into my arms and closed her eyes. The sunlight outside grew brighter, flooding the room and warming everything. I held Shania. She held me, and we lay there in bed, neither wanting to get up. In that moment, the luckiest thing in this life isn't meeting her, isn't falling in love with her, it's that when she reached out her hand, I didn't pull away, because I knew it wasn't just her hand. She placed her heart in my hands. How could I ever bear to pull away?